Hey, what's going on, guys? Dignal here. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make these motion design intros that I've been posting a lot on my channel. Now, this isn't going to be a precise, step-by-step guide on how to do a specific intro. It is more like just me showing you the basics of actually making this and how to get creative and how to blow up on your own, basically. So yeah, this is going to be an After Effects tutorial, once again, so if you don't have After Effects, make sure to either install it or just click off the video. That is completely up to you. But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is just make a composition. I'm going to make it 60 frames, because, I just prefer 60 over 24 for these intro sort of stuff. You can do 24 as well, it's probably better, but yeah, that is up to you. I'm going to set the duration to like 15 seconds, I guess. You don't really want more than that. And I'm just going to show you guys sort of the basics on how to make everything buttery smooth. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a solid here. I'm just going to make the background white. And I'm going to go ahead and drag in like a logo or something. I'm going to go ahead and drag in this Google logo just as an example. And that is going to go in. And we now have a very clean looking Google logo. So I'm going to show you guys how to actually make this look smooth. So for the first sort of zoom in, we want this to sort of like expand out. We're going to have this last roughly like I'd say 45 frames is a good sort of time span for this. So we're just going to go ahead and cut that off. Going to go transform. I'm going to set the scale to 0, keyframe it. And then at the end, we want to set it to 123 or whatever it was, something like that. So we can just go ahead and do that. And now we're going to go ahead and select these and easy ease them. But in order to actually make that smooth, we're just going to go ahead and click on just the scale like that. And what we're going to do is drag this up. And the reason I'm doing this is because when we have it like this, it's going to not be too smooth at all. Because the actual ending is very sharp, as you can see, and that won't look smooth at all. So we want this above part right here, since we can see that the clitoris, we want that to be smooth. So we want that to be sort of straight. So we could either do something like this, which I wouldn't really recommend for this specific sort of thing. I mean, that does look fine. It does look pretty smooth. But what will look smoother is if we drag this up completely like that. So if I have it like that, we do that, it's going to look a whole lot smoother because it just sort of comes in very quick at the start and then sort of fades down. So now what we're going to do is just, let's say we want to move this from one place to another. Let's say we want to move this up. So what we're going to do is just go somewhere here, I guess. We just click on position, we separate the dimensions, and we keyframe the Y position. Now let's say we're on 38 frames. We want this to like go up to like 110 here. Just drag that up to where we want it to be, which is gonna be right there. We select both of these and we easy ease them. And for a graph like this, where we move something from one place to another, we want it to be sort of smooth like this. So we drag both of these out. You can hold shift to just make them straight, and we want both of those to sort of do something like that. So the reason for that is that when we can see both the start of the motion and the end of it, it is very important that they are both smooth. Like this is got to be smooth, and this has got to be smooth as well. So just go ahead and play around with this graph until you find something that you like. I personally think that this wasn't long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and drag the end keyframe out a bit. And we want that to sort of be longer, and we want this to be shorter. So if we just play this back just like that, that looks very, very smooth. So as you can see, we already have a very, very smooth looking animation right there. Now let's say you want to do something like, making a taskbar or making a search bar or whatever. So what we're going to want to do is just select our rectangle tool and just go to the end and just draw a rectangle, sort of like that. Just go ahead and do something like that sort of looks like a rectangle. And let me just go ahead and see what this actually looks like. So as you can see right here, my stroke is 2 pixels and it's just sort of gray because of the white background. And we just sort of have a nice looking sort of thing like this. Now the reason it looks like this is because the fill is set to the same color as the background. So just make sure you have that. if you want to make this specific thing. You might be, you know, making something else, in which case you're going to want to change these settings up here. So obviously the fill does change, you know, depending on this color. You can also go ahead and turn off the fill completely if you click on the text. So you can set that to a gradient or whatever. We can also set it to no fill, which I guess would be easier. But yeah, now we have something like that. So now what we're going to want to do to actually animate this is go to the rectangle path, and we're going to set the size, or we're going to unlink those. I'm going to set the size right here. We're going to go to the X value, and we're going to animate that. So we want to go to like here, I guess, where we want the actual thing to come out. We want to keyframe the size here. Then we go here, sort of like roughly here, where we want the actual search bar to be full. And then we add another keyframe. Now go back to this original keyframe and set the size to 0. Now just go ahead and ease those. And now what we want to do is once again make a sort of smooth thing. So obviously we want to just go right here to the first one. We want this to be sort of smooth, I guess, but the main thing is that the top one looks a lot smoother. So just make a graph that looks sort of like that, I would say. We want it to be sort of smooth towards the start, but not too smooth. So if you go ahead and just look at that, it does look pretty decent. Now, I don't really think that that is long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and drag the last keyframe out a bit. But as you can see, it looks pretty decent. Now, as you can see, there is a sort of, yeah, just sort of like a line here. So what we're going to do for that is just go to the transform options. We're going to set the opacity to 0% right there. Keyframe it, go like a bit up, out, and set that to 100. So as you can see, it just sort of comes out of nowhere here, and it looks a whole lot better. Now, you can play around with the placement of everything, but as you can see right here, we currently have a very cool looking Google sort of intro. Now, the project file for this will be in the description, of course. So, yeah, just make sure to check that out. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is actually cursor movements. I'm just make sure that the PNG I have is correct. It is. So, we're going to go ahead and drag that in. So, I'm going to show you what I usually do for cursor movement. Obviously, that is way too big. I'm going to drag that down to, like, the cursor is a lot smaller than you think it is. Jesus. It's sort of that size, I guess. So, just make sure that you're happy with the size you have. And what we're going to want to go ahead and do is just go roughly here, I guess. We're going to just cut the cursor off right there. We're going to go down here. We want to enable the motion blur. I can't remember which one. It's right down. It's the 3 circles. So just enable motion blur for the cursor. And just go ahead and click on transform. And go ahead and move the cursor out of screen. It's just going to be sort of right there. So now just go ahead and make sure to keyframe the position. And now just go to where you want the cursor to come in, which is going to be roughly right there. Then just go ahead and drag that on to the search bar, because we sort of want the cursor to click on it. Now, if we just sort of look back right here, that is way too linear. And obviously it is way too fast as well. So we're going to drag that back a bit, and we're going to keyframe or ease those. So now when we look at this chart, it can be a lot more linear than you'd think. It doesn't really matter in the end. I think easing is good enough for the cursor. I wouldn't really spend too much time on that, because the cursor, if you're making like a proper intro, is going to be moving a lot. So as you can see right here, we just have that. I'd honestly just turn off the motion blur. It looked way better in my other project. I don't really know what happened there. But yeah, just go and play around with it. But now the last thing I did for the Google intro that I might as well show you guys is the drop shadow on the actual search bar, because that actually happens on Google when you go ahead and hover over a search bar. So I'm just going to go ahead and open effects and presets. I'm going to search for drop shadow, and I'm going to go down to the shape layer that I have. I'm going to go ahead and add a drop shadow to it. I'm going to go ahead and set the shift and X and Y to 0. And I'm going to go ahead and re-enable the fill right here, so that the actual drop shadow only applies to the outside. I'm going to go ahead and turn the blur on a lot, and I'm going to just drag down the opacity by a whole bunch as well. So yeah, that looks alright. I'd say it looks decent. So now what we're going to do is keyframe the opacity. We go to where the cursor overrides it. It's going to be right there. Keyframe it. Go back 1. Drag it down to 0. I would maybe honestly keyframe this a bit more so that it's smoother. Sort of like that. And then let's say we want the cursor to sort of move off. After like sort of here, once you've done the text or whatnot, we can just keyframe the position once again. And then just have it go away to this side, maybe like so. Now, once it does end up leaving right there, well, we just go ahead and turn the shadow opacity down to 0. We copy that, drag that there, and just sort of play around with the keyframes. So as you can see right here, we just have that, and it looks pretty smooth, I'd say. So yeah, that is really about it. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, like down below, comment, subscribe, all the good shit, and I'll see you guys in a couple days, and peace.